I had a subscriber recently tell me that he was interested in my talks regarding mental health, conformity, individuation. This is a topic that I have covered in previous videos, but I haven't really talked about it much recently. So this is something that I am very interested in, my mental health, how to stay sane in a world that sometimes makes me feel like I'm not sane, like I'm insane. Depending upon which environment I'm in. Some days I feel like I'm the sanest person in the world. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only crazy in the room. Have you ever felt like that? Well, if you have, or you just want to hear my thoughts, please continue this video. Please write in the comments what you think. Click like if you like it, and share and subscribe. All right. So I am not a professional health expert. I want to get that out of the way. I cannot make recommendations for you in your particular instances. All I can do is share my own experience on the topic of pharmaceuticals. I have a father who was diagnosed with bipolar. He started getting on medication after he got this diagnosis. He was very excited because along with this diagnosis, he was able to get disability, which meant he was able to pull from his Social Security early in life and basically stopped working, collected money. He was very happy about that. But I saw his mental health deteriorate after his apparent diagnosis. Now, did his mental health deteriorate because of the pharmaceutical pills or because he stopped working? I think probably a little bit of both. I noticed immediately after he started taking whatever pills they had given him, and he got a lot of pills, and he probably abused the pills. He probably took more than he needed. I noticed that he started to bloat. He became incoherent. It was very difficult to have conversations. I've described him probably previously in my YouTube channel that he became like a zombie. He lost his vigor. He lost his source of, he was a very vigorous man before this diagnosis. It was almost like the bipolar diagnosis like really changed him forever. He accepted it. He had an answer. He read a book. He took the pills. He dove into the system, got the government check, and he was never the same. And he's really bad now. In fact, it's one of those situations where I almost expect to get a message from my older brother who is in America that I'm going to have to fly back and bury him. And I'm not saying that flippantly. I'm not trying to be capricious. This is one of the very big tragedies of my life, my brother's life, something that we've had to deal with. We've all had to deal with it. I can at least say that my dad, for all of his ills, and this is not a video to bash my dad. He was a man who had made some choices based on his situation, but something that me and my brother have lamented, the fact that he not only lost his mental health, but along with your mental health, sometimes when your mental health goes, your physical health goes. You stop taking care of yourself. You lose your lust for life. Sorry if this is all over the place. I didn't necessarily expect to talk about my dad. I expected to talk about something else, but here we are. And the medication and the diagnosis and just sort of like checking in with the system and seeing all these life coaches, psychiatrists, I don't know how much good it did him. I don't know what would have happened if he had not taken the medication, because that would be just some sort of alternate universe. I will say that before he started taking any sort of meds for his mental health, before he knew what bipolar meant, he was kind of a crazy guy in some ways. He treated himself with alcohol, and he probably dabbled in other drugs as well. I mean, but he was at least a very charismatic, vigorous man. He was never really a hard worker. He was always looking for an easy life. And so I think once he got that diagnosis, it was that much easier just to say, okay, see, I'm disabled. Boom, I'm out. I'm checking out of this whole work thing. And he got support for that. And anytime me or my brother said, "Are you sure you want to accept that, man? Are you sure?" His wife, who's now his ex-wife at the time, was like, "No, your dad is ill. He needs to take this medication." And she actually, I think she said, "And Ryan, you're going to need it in the future too," something like that. But I love her now. I'm not. This is an anecdote. This is not proof that medication for bipolar will not work for you or one of your loved ones. This is not proof that the system doesn't work or that there's not a purpose for the system. I'm just saying that this was my first confrontation with pharmaceuticals designed to stabilize someone. I will say that it did calm him down. He did have those sort of high ups, high downs, and he was a man with problems before he got on the medication. Like I said, he self-medicated with booze. He was maybe a little verbally abusive, maybe even a little physically abusive with his ex-wife. I don't want to get into the details. Some of it I don't know 100%. Maybe some of it I shouldn't even talk about. But the medication did calm him down. I think probably in many ways there are some people with very wide-ranging personalities that if they start to go off the rails, the medication is designed to just put them on the rails, even at a cost of their vigor and health, their personality. I'll give another example. One of my cousins, a very close cousin, also had a wild personality, a very vigorous male who also leaned towards criminality. I should mention on that note, the triggering event which put my dad onto this whole course of pills, which sort of turned him into the zombie, and he just kind of skidded downhill from there, worse and worse. But the triggering event was he had a fight with the cops. So, the human personality, I'll get back to my cousin, the human personality, we have a lot of parts of our personality, particularly aggression, and our desire to go out and possess and conquer and do things that might not be socially acceptable. And some of us have more of this urge and desire than other people, and perhaps other people handle it in other ways or are more cognizant of that inner desire within themselves, and by understanding yourself, sometimes you're able to mitigate perhaps actions that might not be beneficial to your life. My dad was always a bit of a wild man, and he ended up getting in a fight with the police when he was 44, got on the medication, got the diagnosis, stopped any ambition for a vocation or a career, and just, wasn't long after that, maybe a year after that, he gave up his driver's license and sold his car, and then, just giving up one function after the other till the point where, he just didn't care, and just sort of skidded down into a very sad state that me and my brother, no matter what we tried to do, whether it was tough love or just love and kindness, nothing we could really do, because it is, I think, one of those things that, unless someone wants to help themselves, unless they have goodwill for their own mental health and actually their own happiness, there's not much you can do. You can't force anyone. And I haven't given up hope on him. He's still alive. I think where you're alive, there's always hope. But you never know. But I'm not counting on it right now, unfortunately. My cousin, who I previously mentioned, also a very wild guy, driven toward really a man full of gifts, just like my father, a man full of vigor, a man full of charisma, a man full of gifts. A lot of times nature presents some of her children with a lot of gifts, but it comes at a cost. And sometimes that cost is they're wild. And my cousin was one of those guys as well. Got into gangs, got into crime, got into drugs. And I think eventually through one of his court cases, the system, he saw a way of like perhaps beating one of his cases or having an easy explanation. He got diagnosed and was diagnosed also as bipolar, got put on bipolar medication. It was something his parents supported him in, so the government who could have prosecuted him, I think that was the situation, maybe not, but along those lines, supported him being bipolar, and his parents supported him, the family supported him. And he told me he told me at the time it blew his mind because for so long he had sought out illegal drugs and thought he was doing something bad, and here his parents were helping him he said he just dumped a bag on the bed and just saw all these pills he could take. And he gave into it just like my father did. And I remember seeing my younger cousin, so full of life. I just saw his physical and mental health deteriorate, started to lose his hair, and got fat, lost his charisma, lost his coherence, lost that sparkle that you see behind people's eyes. And it was really sad. It was the same exact thing that had happened to my dad. He recognized it, got himself off of it. I don't know, probably wasn't very easy. I think started to get back onto alcohol and other things, got back into crime, had a lot of drama, wild people have a lot of drama. And just recently, I've heard that he's doing really well in life, that he's rebuilt. He went away from the family for a long time. He's just recently come back. And I guess I wasn't there for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Thanksgiving was the first time he got back with the family. So rebuilding some of the relationships that he had sort of destroyed during his sort of manic, bipolar, crazy days. I will say also, I don't really like using a lot of terms and diagnoses. I think it's just a lot of men are born wild, and some men are born more wild than others. And some of us have very powerful emotions. And society, I'm not trying to give an excuse or a pass to criminality or wanton destruction, but I just think that it's not easy being human. It's not easy for any of us, regardless of who you are, because society, we largely have to suppress parts of our personality that we cannot show. Like, I like to be naked, but I can't just walk around naked, right? Obviously. So I have to sort of push that part of me down and just enjoy that in the special moments of life when I can do that. And some of us perhaps have natures that when they get pushed down too much, it sort of explodes and comes out in very unhealthy ways. Like I said, I'm not trying to do any casuistry and explain away people's bad behavior. But just like it would be much more difficult for a wild wolf to get along with the neighborhood pack of dogs than, let's say, a dog that was bred for servility, like a little Labrador, where they're bred to be obedient. Some dogs are just a little more wild, and I think some people are a little more wild. And the cultures and the milieu and the family that you grow up with. My dad came from a very wild family, a family also with a lot of mental health problems, and it's just not easy sometimes to keep it together. And some people end up going the pill route, going the official diagnosis, and maybe it works for some people. But it didn't really work for my father or my cousin, although my father would probably tell you, if you could find him, if he hasn't lost his phone and you could call him, if he was even awake, that he was happy with his choice. I think part of the problem is sometimes we don't want to face up to the bad choices we've made. We don't want to face the fact that not everything is right. I really love that old quote that comes from the Bible, the truth shall set you free. And sometimes you have to be very honest with yourself about what you're doing that is helping improve your life and improving your mental health, and what you're doing that might not be helping, it might be hindering you. And sometimes we don't want to admit it because it would be painful to have to admit that we've made a mistake. We might actually have remorse or guilt. We might have to apologize, so on and so forth. None of us are perfect. I think it's a really important thing to remember that we're all human. And it's not always easy to be human. Sometimes it can be, but it's not always easy. But that doesn't mean life's not beautiful. Life is gorgeous. Life is so nice. I think a lot of our sanity can sometimes come from when we seek the beautiful, when we seek the things that we enjoy, when we seek the things that are so nice. When you go out into the sunshine, then you naturally get some vitamin D, you get some exercise. When you eat good food, then you get that nourishment, When you seek out things that make you happy, that make you feel good, then I think a lot of times naturally you end up improving your position. Like, for example, last weekend, I had a lazy weekend and I gave myself the excuse that, it's cold outside and I'm feeling a little under the weather, but something inside of me, but I was not at my ease. I was dis-eased. Dis, as in not at, as in the negative, and ease, disease. I was not feeling well mentally, and I couldn't watch a movie. I couldn't play a game. I couldn't read a book. And that voice inside my head, which was telling me, just stay inside. But something inside of me wanted to go outside. And then I went outside, and I got on a bicycle, and I started riding, and I ended up going down roads that I had never been down, found a new bicycle path, got so much fun, so excited. It was absolutely one of the best things I could have done. And I think that sometimes we need, so I'm not trying to preach to you, but I'm just talking about for me. Sometimes I need to listen to that part of me. I think we all have this voice inside of us that is pushing us to health. I think that if you're still alive, that there's a part of you, and you say part of you, yes, we're made of many different parts. We've got our emotions, we've got our feelings, we've got our rational analytical intellect, we've got our intuition, we've got our sensation. We have all of these our appetites, our sexual appetite, all of these competing, maybe unified as a whole, when we're operating at our best. But sometimes we ignore parts of ourselves because we're lazy, or we're cowardly, we're afraid. Fear is I went out against the voice of weakness. I think some people have referred to it as the bitch. I ignored the bitch, went outside, had this beautiful bicycle ride, got off of the usual path that I went on new paths, and just had so much fun. I felt so good. I was rewarded mentally, and I got a good sleep that night. So I think following the urge inside of you that is pushing you towards life, finding that, believing in that. And, maybe some days you don't do it, you slide back, but you keep going. You keep looking for it. I have found that has been the best help, is that the help is not necessarily, maybe there will be people who will help you on the outside, and maybe pills and drugs and all of that will help you, but the best help will come from within. Follow those urges. Follow that thing that I don't know if it's called your natural conscience versus your social conscience, but this thing inside of you that wants to live, that wants you to thrive, that wants you to have fun and enjoy this one. You get to live this life once that we know of. Maybe we get reincarnated, maybe we go off into heaven or whatever, but here you are on this beautiful planet. It might not always be beautiful, but you can go and seek the beautiful. You don't like the noise in your living room? Leave the living room. Go outside. Follow yourself. Move. Take agency for your life and go out and be you. That's what it comes down to, being you, being you. See, now I'm just speaking in cliche terms, but I think you know what I'm trying to say is that mental health is not always the easiest, but we have it within our power to be happy. And when we are happy, we're usually good. And when we're unhappy, when we're miserable, and then we hate the world, we hate our life. We hate our life because we didn't do the things we wanted to do. We hate our life because we didn't take care of ourselves. We hate our life because we don't want to admit the mistakes. Then we end up driving ourselves further and further down that spiral, and maybe you destroy your relationships. You hate life more. Then you shoot up a mall, you know what I mean, right? People who end up, I think, doing a lot of really bad things, it's because they hate themselves so much that they hate the world. And sometimes, you can't necessarily disentangle your mental health from the world. You are constantly being influenced from outside, but know that you are strong enough to still be yourself, despite whatever messages you're getting from outside. And maybe you're in an environment that might not be very healthy. Maybe it's your family or your girlfriend or your job, but maybe that might just be your perception. First, follow what is strongly urging you towards being courageous, facing the truth, happiness, joy, man. I mean, whatever is making you dance and sing, that is probably a good thing in your life. Whatever is making you miserable, that's probably not a good thing in your life. So trust your intuition, trust your nature. I'm not trying to preach, I'm just trying to say there's a message for anyone who wants the advice of someone who has failed again and again. And it's okay to fail, because I'm going to keep failing, because the brilliant, one of the most famous, if maybe the second, third greatest English poet after Shakespeare, obviously, the great William Blake once said, "A fool through his folly could become wise." And it's oftentimes we are all fools, but when the fool makes the mistake, he eventually does learn a little wisdom. So everything I have learned is just from constantly making mistakes. And I don't want to go back down that route, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try to go in another direction, try to trust myself. Sometimes you relearn these lessons again and again. Have goodwill towards your mental health. Carl Jung, who is a great, wise writer of analytical psychology, who I don't read so much anymore, but he helped me he helped me when I was in the trenches. If you're someone in the trenches, I highly recommend Carl Jung. The trenches of, you know what I mean. Maybe you don't, I don't know. He once wrote that he found that patients who had goodwill towards their mental health generally did recover. So you would say, well, why wouldn't anyone have goodwill towards their mental health? I don't know. I think some people don't love themselves, hate themselves and the world so much, they're resentful. I don't know. I have felt hate and resentfulness towards the world and myself within me. So if I can feel it, I know others have felt it too. It's not a good thing. It doesn't do good things for my health or for my relationships. Life is a continual learning process. We always have to deal with change. We don't want to change. We want it easy, but sometimes when we embrace it, that's when life does become easy. That's when life does become beautiful. But anyways, we are all humans. We're all in this together, all in this beautiful experience. And I hope that my experience, as anecdotal as it might be, as unprofessional as it might be, not any solicited, not any advice I'm trying to push on you, but just share it, because one of my subscribers had requested something along this vein. I hope it helps. My name's Ryan Freeman. Bye-bye.